All right, if you're getting into the world of accounting, we've got to talk about something huge, negligence. And trust me, this isn't just some boring legal theory. It's about the very real impact of the advice you'll be giving every single day. I want you to just think about this for a second. What happens when a client trusts you, they put their money on the line based on your advice, and then it all just goes south? This is way more than just a bad day at the office. This is where the law steps in and asks a very serious question. So, to make this all feel real, we're going to follow a simple story. Picture this. An accountant gives some hot investment advice. The client, trusting them completely, goes for it. And then, poof, the investment totally tanks. The big question we're going to answer today is, who's on the hook for that loss?
So yeah, when advice goes wrong, what's the deal legally? It's not about pointing fingers or just plain bad luck. There's actually a pretty clear framework the law uses to figure out what a professional's responsibility really is. To figure our case out, we need the right tools. And our main tool here is something called the tort of negligence. Now, don't let the legal jargon scare you. Think of it more like a step-by-step guide for figuring out if someone is actually legally at fault. At the very center of any negligence claim is this really clear three-part test. If you can get your head around these 3 steps, you'll understand the absolute core of professional liability. This is your roadmap.
Okay, here they are. For a client to win a negligence case, they have to prove all 3 of these things. It's not a mix-and-match situation. You need all of them. It's like a 3-legged stool. You have to show that a duty existed, that the duty was broken, and that specific break is what caused the financial mess. So let's start with step 1 and apply it to our story. Did our accountant owe a duty of care to their client? Well, this one's a slam dunk. The answer is absolutely 100% yes. The second you enter a professional relationship, like an accountant and a client, the law just automatically says, yep, you now have a duty to be careful.
Okay, so proving a duty exists, that's usually the easy part. The real fight, where things get complicated, is with the next question. Was that duty actually breached? I mean, what does it even mean to breach a duty of care? And that brings us right to step 2. The breach. To figure this out, the law pulls out this idea of the reasonable person. It's a basic test that asks, did the accountant's actions fall below the standard of what an ordinary, sensible, reasonable person would have done in the same boat?
And last but not least, we have step 3, causation. This is super important. The client can't just say, hey, I talked to my accountant and then I lost money. No way. They have to prove that because of the accountant's specific, bad advice, and for no other reason, they lost that money. The link has to be rock solid and direct. But hang on a minute. This is where it gets really interesting, especially for professionals. Does it really make sense to judge a highly trained accountant giving complex financial advice by the same standard as just some random, reasonable person you'd find on the street? Well, the law thinks about that too, and the answer is a big, fat no. And that leads us to the super critical idea, the professional standard. See, when you present yourself as an expert with a special skill, the law decides to judge you on a totally different level. You're not just an ordinary person anymore. You're a professional. So you can really see the difference here. On one hand, for everyday stuff, we have the reasonable person standard. But on the other hand, for someone like an accountant who's offering specialized expertise, the bar is raised way higher. You're not being compared to the average Joe, you're being compared to another competent accountant. This old legal quote just nails it perfectly. The question isn't, what would a normal person do? The question is, what would a reasonably skilled professional who says they have this special skill do in this exact same situation? Let's bring this back to our story. To figure out if our accountant messed up, we don't ask what you or I would have done. We ask, what would another skilled, careful, and competent accountant have advised? And let me tell you, that is a much, much tougher standard to meet. All right, just when you think we've got it all figured out, let's throw in a little twist. Professionals almost never work alone, right? Our accountant is an employee at a huge accounting firm. Does that change anything about who the client can sue? This opens up a whole new area of law called vicarious liability. And it's all about the idea that sometimes someone can be held responsible for what another person did. It's a game changer. To put it really simply, vicarious liability just means the boss can be on the hook for the employee's mistakes. The whole idea is that the company that's making money from the employee's work should also have to carry the risk that the employee might mess up. Now, it's not a free-for-all. There are a few boxes you have to take for this to apply. First, a wrong, like negligence, had to have actually happened. Second, the person has to be a real employee, not just a freelancer. And third, the mistake has to have happened while they were actually doing their job. So here's the bottom line. If our accountant was negligent while doing their job, the client doesn't just have to sue the individual person. They can go after the entire firm. And let's be real, the firm is the one with the much, much deeper pockets. It's a huge deal. Okay, let's wrap this all up. What did we learn? First, any negligence claim needs that three-part test: duty, breach, and causation. Second, we saw that if you're a professional, you're held to a higher standard, the reasonable professional. And finally, that responsibility doesn't always stop with you. It can extend to your employer through vicarious liability. And that leaves us with one final question. And this one's for you. As you move forward in your career, knowing how high the standard is and how real the consequences are, how are you going to make sure you protect your clients, and in doing so, protect yourself? This isn't just about exams, it's about building a solid, trustworthy career.